Welcome to Tech Bytes and News, your daily roundup of articles featured in Hacker News. Today we're diving deep into a fascinating debate between Robert Martin and John Ousterhout, two giants in the software design world, on their contrasting philosophies as presented in their respective books, Clean Code and A Philosophy of Software Design. Get ready for some spirited discussion.
I'm really looking forward to this. Their differing views on method length, comments, and TDD are particularly interesting. Let's start with method length.
Right. Ousterhout argues that while modular design is crucial, excessive decomposition leads to shallow interfaces and entanglement. He introduces the concept of deep methods, offering substantial functionality with simple interfaces, versus shallow methods, which offer little functional benefit and increase complexity. Makes sense, right?
Absolutely. Martin, on the other hand, advocates for extremely short methods, even suggesting functions should rarely exceed 20 lines. He emphasizes the one-thing rule. A method should do only one thing. But Ousterhout challenges this, arguing that it's vague and easily abused, potentially leading to over-decomposition. What's your take?
I see Ousterhout's point. The one-thing rule lacks clear boundaries. It's subjective. He uses the example of thread-safe methods. Acquiring a lock and performing the critical section are two distinct actions, yet they belong together. Forcing separation would be artificial.
Exactly. They discuss the prime generator example from Clean Code, highlighting its over-decomposition. Ousterhout points out the entanglement between methods, forcing readers to jump between multiple methods to grasp the overall logic. A real mess.
Yeah, it's a classic example of how striving for excessively small methods can backfire. Martin acknowledges the problem, explaining that the prime generator was a pedagogical example, not intended for production. But Ousterhout counters that, even as a pedagogical example, it demonstrates the pitfalls of over-decomposition. Interesting.
Moving on to comments. Martin's stance is quite controversial. He famously states that comments are always failures, implying they indicate a failure of expressing oneself clearly in code. Ousterhout strongly disagrees, arguing that comments are crucial for conveying information that cannot be expressed effectively in code alone. He emphasizes the importance of comments for abstraction and explaining non-obvious algorithmic details. A huge difference of opinion.
Absolutely. Ousterhout highlights the limitations of relying solely on long, descriptive method names to replace comments. He argues that such names are awkward, hard to parse, and don't always convey the necessary context as effectively as well-written comments. He points out that even Martin himself uses abbreviations in their discussion, suggesting that even he finds the excessively long names cumbersome.
Martin counters that he prefers long names to comments because he doesn't trust comments to be maintained or read. He even mentions that many IDEs make comments less visually prominent, making them easier to ignore. Ousterhout challenges this, stating that his IDE highlights comments prominently, and that his experience shows that missing comments are far more detrimental than incorrect ones. A strong point.
Their discussion on the prime generator code further illustrates their contrasting views. Ousterhout provides a rewritten version with extensive comments, emphasizing the importance of explaining the algorithm's subtleties. Martin, while acknowledging the algorithm's complexity, still prefers minimal comments, believing that the code itself should be self-explanatory, a classic case of differing philosophies.
Finally, they tackle test-driven development, TDD. Ousterhout, while a proponent of unit testing, is critical of TDD's emphasis on writing tests before code in tiny increments. He argues that this approach is too tactical, hindering design thinking and potentially leading to poor designs. He proposes a bundling approach, where developers work in larger units, writing code and then tests. What do you think?
It's a complex issue. Ousterhout's concern about TDD hindering design is valid. The focus on passing individual tests might overshadow the bigger picture of the overall system architecture. Martin, however, defends TDD, highlighting its benefits in reducing debugging and providing detailed, low-level documentation. He emphasizes the importance of refactoring within the TDD cycle to improve design. A fascinating debate.
Their discussion highlights the importance of balancing competing concerns in software design. Both agree on the value of modularity and testing, but their approaches and priorities differ significantly. Ultimately, the choice between their approaches depends on individual preferences, project needs, and team dynamics. A great discussion.
Precisely. This conversation underscores the fact that there's no one-size-fits-all solution in software design. It's all about finding the right balance and choosing the approach that best suits the specific context. Thanks for joining us on Tech Bytes and News. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.